My name's Donna. I live in a little mountain town off Route 19, tucked in the folds of the Appalachian Range like a secret. Folks around here live slow and quiet. Ain't a whole lot of noise, save for coyotes yapping at dusk, or the occasional ATV bouncing down the old logging trails. We mind our business, and we expect the same from others. That's how it's always been. It was a Thursday night in October. I remember because the air was just cold enough to sting my knuckles, and the moon was hanging low and yellow like a rotten tooth in the sky. I had just left my sister's place in Clay County. She'd had surgery on her wrist, so I'd driven out earlier to drop off some food and help her with laundry. I didn't plan to stay late, but time slipped away like it always does when you're catching up. By the time I got in the car to drive home, it was well past 11. The roads were nearly empty, just a few porch lights blinking behind thick trees, and the occasional truck passing the other way. The mountains are a different kind of dark at night, not city dark, but full dark, where the trees press in around the road, and your headlights barely cut through the black. It's quiet too, not peaceful quiet, but a sort of hollow silence, like something is holding its breath. I was about 30 minutes from home when it happened. I'd just passed an old sagging barn I always use as a mental marker. It means I'm about to hit the winding stretch before my road. I remember reaching for my thermos, my hand wrapped around it, when my headlights caught something up ahead. I braked without thinking. There were figures, right in the middle of the road. At first my brain tried to make sense of it. I thought maybe it was deer, or hikers, or some kind of art performance, anything to explain what I was seeing. But it wasn't anything that fit in a normal box. There was a woman walking in the center of the road. She was barefoot, pale, dressed in a long white robe that brushed the cracked asphalt. Her hair was pitch black, and fell straight down her back like a curtain. She moved slow, steady, like she didn't even notice the car barreling toward her. And behind her, this is the part that still makes my skin go cold, there were 4 men. At least I think they were men. Grown adults, anyway. They were crawling on all fours, wearing deep red robes that hung loose around their shoulders and dragged on the ground. The way they moved didn't look natural. Their limbs bent strange. One of them had his head tilted up like he was sniffing the air. It looked like she was walking them, like someone walking dogs, except it was midnight in the middle of nowhere, and they weren't leashed or forced. They followed her like they were devoted. I didn't even realize my hands were shaking until I gripped the wheel tighter. I should have reversed, turned around, anything, but I'd come around a bend, and there they were, already in front of me. I knew if I blinked, I'd miss some detail that would prove it wasn't real, but it was all too real. I didn't dare look her in the eyes. I don't know why. It felt instinctual, like something deep in my bones told me not to. I glanced just long enough to see her expression was blank. No fear, no joy, just empty, like a mask. I swerved around them and floored it. I don't remember making the turn onto my road or pulling into my gravel driveway. I just remember the shaking in my arms, how my teeth were clenched tight the whole time. I nearly forgot to throw the car into park. I slammed my front door behind me and locked it. Then I locked the back one, and the windows. I don't usually bother, but that night, I did. I even pulled the curtains tight, and turned off the porch light. You'd think I'd sleep with all the lights on after seeing something like that, but I didn't. I sat in the dark. Something about turning the lights on made me feel too visible, like they'd know where I was if they hadn't already. I didn't sleep, not a minute. Every time the house creaked, or the wind moved through the trees, I tensed up, imagining the shuffle of bare feet across my gravel, or the soft patter of hands and knees dragging across my porch. Now I know some of you might be thinking, it was a cult, a prank, or just some crazy people from town. Believe me, I wanted it to be that, but this wasn't a Halloween stunt. No one in town ever came forward, no one reported anything, and I never saw any vehicles parked along the road. That stretch is far too remote for someone to just be passing through. Some folks have said maybe I was tired, hallucinating, but I know what I saw. I was alert, sober, focused. I didn't dream it, I lived it. And even if it were some twisted group of people, tell me, what kind of group walks on all fours behind a woman in silence, in the pitch black, in the middle of an isolated road in the Appalachians, with no lights, no purpose and no fear? I've never seen them again, but I never drive that road at night anymore. And if I do, God forbid, I slow down at every turn, because I'm terrified I'll see that white robe again. I don't usually tell people this story, mostly because it doesn't feel like it's mine to tell. But every so often, I catch myself thinking about that day, and when I do, it still puts a bad weight in my chest. Back in 2004, I was living up in the Blue Ridge, not far from Burnsville. My family's land sat quiet off a dirt road where the trees crowd in close and cell signal gives up. I raised goats and pigs, Ussabaw hogs mostly, and had 2 old horses I used more out of habit than necessity. I didn't keep signs out or anything. Folks around here know where to find you if they need meat, and I liked it that way. Quiet, predictable. It was late summer, and I was out in the yard mending the lower gate to the pig pen. Hot day, the kind where the air hums with bugs and everything smells like dirt and salt and animal breath. I was about elbow deep in a bucket of rusted bolts when I heard a car crunch up the gravel. Not many people come out here without calling first. I wiped my hands and stood up, half expecting it to be my cousin or maybe someone local looking for eggs, but it was a dark blue Lincoln, long and clean, the kind of car that doesn't belong out here. Windows tinted darker than legal. Guy steps out, maybe late 40s, pressed jeans, polo shirt, expensive-looking boots. He didn't look sweaty, even though the sun was damn near boiling. "You the one with the pigs?" he asked. I nodded, squinting. "You from around here?" He smiled, not wide, just enough. "Not exactly. Someone told me you had good stock, said you raise Ussabaws." I didn't ask who, should've, but the way he said it, like he already knew the answer to everything, caught me off guard. "I've got a few," I said. "What are you looking for?" "Full-grown ones," he said. "Big as you've got. I'll pay cash." I remember my first thought wasn't suspicion, it was just confusion. Most buyers want piglets, or maybe 1 or 2 adults. Nobody buys all your biggest pigs at once, unless they're stocking a restaurant, or doing some kind of backyard slaughter, and even then it's rare. Still, I told him the price, $180 a head, which was fair for a full-grown pig back then. He didn't haggle, didn't blink, said he'd take all 8. "I'll come back with my trailer this evening," he said. "That work for you?" I nodded slowly. "You sure you got room for all of them?" He smiled again. "I've got it handled." That should have been the moment, that flicker of something off. I felt it. You know how animals freeze up sometimes before a storm? That's how I felt standing there. Not scared exactly, just misaligned. But I ignored it. Cash was cash, and feed wasn't cheap. He left with a polite nod. Same calm walk back to his car. Drove off slow, not a speck of dust on the bumper. When he came back around 7, the sun was dipping low, and the light made everything look sharper, more orange. His trailer was newer than anything I'd seen on the road. He had it all. Loading ramps, straps, even feed to lure the pigs in. The pigs didn't fight him, didn't squeal or root or make a mess like they usually do. They followed him right up into that trailer like he'd been feeding them for years. He handed me a thick envelope, unsealed. I counted it in front of him. 1,440. Exactly right. That was the last I saw of him. Now here's where things turn. A couple weeks go by, and I don't think much about it, until I hear something on the radio. AM station out of Asheville. Just a quick news bit about 2 hikers who'd gone missing along the Appalachian Trail, not far from Mount Mitchell. Young couple from Florida. Their car was found at a trailhead, but no sign of them. We get disappearances sometimes, sure. It's a lot of woods, a lot of ways to get lost. But then a week later, they find blood, lots of it, at a makeshift campsite, a few miles off the trail. No bodies, just blood, and 2 different sets of clothes. Now I start paying attention, and then it happens. A photo gets circulated in the local paper. The boyfriend smiling in a ball cap, his arm around his girl. Behind them, blurry and far off, is a car. Dark blue Lincoln. I stared at that picture for a long time. I wanted to believe it was just coincidence. But deep down, something in me shifted. A couple days later, I had the vet come out for routine shots for the goats. We got to talking, and I casually mentioned the sale, how a stranger came by and bought all my pigs, paid in cash. He asked what the guy looked like. I described him, and the vet went quiet. Said something real low like, "That's the fella came by my place last year asking about disposal services." Disposal services. I didn't sleep much that night. I went back through my notebook, where I'd jotted the sale date and the license plate, just part of my habit. I tried calling the local sheriff, but they brushed me off. "Unless you got a crime to report, we can't follow up on a hunch," they said. What was I supposed to say? I think I sold my pigs to a man who fed human remains to them. They'd have laughed me out of the county. And here's the part I still don't know how to live with. If that's what happened, I made it possible. I fattened those pigs. I raised them on corn and molasses. I looked them in the eye every morning and said good morning like they understood me. And maybe they did. Sometimes now when I walk the yard late, I hear that trailer ramp clanging shut in my head. I hear the silence of those pigs following him. Not a single grunt. I haven't sold pigs since. Still keep a few goats, but that's it. People always assume evil shows its teeth, but sometimes it smiles, counts cash, and loads livestock like he's done it 100 times before. It was a late October evening in 2004. the kind where the trees look like they're on fire, and the wind carries that dry, smoky chill that only hits this deep in the mountains. I'd driven my girlfriend up to Copperhead Ridge, about 20 minutes past Wild Creek, near the old mining access roads. That place had always been off the maps, the kind of trailheads locals either didn't talk about or said were closed for preservation. Whatever the excuse, I liked it because it was quiet, isolated. We weren't looking for trouble, just wanted a place to watch the sun go down and kill a few hours before heading home. No cell signal out there. You barely even saw jet trails overhead, like a corner of the world time forgot. I pulled off near the edge of a clearing where the old gravel path thinned out. As soon as I stepped out of the car, my boot squelched down into a puddle thin, pale brown water, like old dishwater with clay in it. I remember how it didn't smell like mud, it smelled stale, like wood rot mixed with rusted metal. I pointed it out to her, half joking, and she just made a face. It clung to the tread of my boots, too slick to be normal mountain runoff. We walked maybe 100 yards up the trail, just talking, kicking through the leaves. She was quiet, which wasn't unusual for her, but halfway up she stopped. Not all at once, just slowed down, then stood there. I asked her what was wrong, and she didn't answer right away. Then she said real quiet, "Do you feel like we're being followed?" I looked back, and the path behind us was empty. The trees were packed tight together, the kind of close where the branches lock above you. Shadows came fast up here, but I didn't see anything. No animals, no movement. Still, I felt that prickly awareness crawl up my back, the feeling you get when you've left a door open and only just remembered. We didn't talk about it, just turned around and went back to the car, her walking faster than me this time. By the time we got back inside, the light was almost gone. I turned the engine off but left the key in, just in case. We reclined the seats and lay back, arms touching, legs tangled. She left her hand draped out the window, playing with the cool air. I remember thinking how calm she looked again, and for a minute it felt like the ridge had let us go. Then it started. I felt this odd pressure along my spine. Not pain, not fear, exactly. Just a sudden alertness, like someone had stepped into a room behind me. It was the same sensation I'd had once before, standing in a crowded station when a man walked too close and stared too long without blinking, like my body was picking up on something my eyes couldn't see yet. I told her, without sounding panicked, to bring her hand inside. She did. Didn't question it. A few minutes passed. I kept telling myself I was imagining things, that maybe it was just how quiet it was up here. But then it came again, stronger. Not a tingle this time, more like a pull, like static rising under the skin. I leaned across her and rolled the window up. She asked if something was wrong. I didn't want to scare her, so I just said, "Let's head back. We've been up here long enough." "What's going on?" she said. I didn't know how to explain it. There was no noise, no movement, but the silence had changed. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It felt aware, like the trees were holding their breath. I turned the key, headlights cutting a narrow beam down the dark trail. As we started moving, I kept glancing in the mirror, half expecting to see someone standing in the road behind us. There was nothing, but that pressure stayed with me all the way down. It sat just beneath the surface, like knowing someone staring at you through a one-way mirror. When we got back to my parents' place, the lights from the kitchen made everything feel normal again. I could hear the television on inside. We stepped into the warmth, and the smell of fried onions and stew. My dad cracked a joke about me bringing her home for dinner, and for a little while, I let myself believe the weirdness was over. We ate, sat at the table for a bit, then got ready to leave. She seemed relaxed again, like she'd already forgotten the walk, the strange puddle, the silence in the trees. We stepped outside together. I walked her around to the passenger side, opened the door, then started to cross behind the car toward the driver's side. That's when I saw them. Smears. 4 of them. Muddy handprints stretched across the back of the car, the same watery brown as that strange puddle. But it wasn't just that they were there, it was how they were placed. One after another, they crept along the metal from the tailgate up toward the side. The last one was high, above the rear window, pressed in hard, palm flat, fingers spread wide. Whoever or whatever left those prints wasn't running. It had been moving slowly, deliberately, like it was watching, like it was waiting for something. I stopped moving. I didn't shout, didn't jump. I just stood there staring, every sound around me draining out. I walked back to her door and told her to get out. "What's wrong?" she asked, confused. I pointed. She stepped out, looked where I was showing her, and her face went pale. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. We both understood the same thing in that moment. Whatever had been out there hadn't stayed on the ridge. We never reported anything. What would we say? There was no crime, no damage. Just a creeping horror we couldn't prove. But that truck, I washed it 3 times. The prints came off easy enough. But that smell, the same faint rot from the puddle lingered inside for weeks, like something had pressed in through the vents, left a trace.